Hello, and welcome back to the Check-In Chat podcast. We've checked into the pit stop, and now we're chatting all things Amazing Race. I'm your host, Matt, and it's episode 9 of season 37. We're in Naples, Italy. The end is getting closer. We've just got 2 more weeks. Is it excited? I'm already excited because it's Eurovision season, so I'm very excited. The house have just started, so I'm in a very excitable mood. But also, it's my first ever non-elimination episode. So, I have no idea how I'm going to be finish this podcast. I don't know yet. So that's going to be interesting in itself. But we have a lot to get through this Expedia-sponsored episode. Oh my. I have a lot of takes to get through. So, let's get straight into it. I first want to say, happy May Bank Holiday weekend. For those who celebrate May Bank Holiday weekend. Got an extra day off work, so I'm happy. So just want to say that at the start. The episode begins, we got this Expedia promo. We've had this before in previous seasons. But just bring back Travelocity, okay? I want the roaming gnome back. I miss the roaming gnome, okay? And so they're booking the hotels also on the app, so they know what they're going to Naples. But this is like the first sign that they should have known this was a non-elimination, because they're sort of saying they're booking the hotel in Naples, and like if they got eliminated here, it would be very awkward for them going to like, oh, we're gonna have to cancel this reservation because the team's getting the next flight home. Okay. So that was my little first potential hint of it being a non-elimination here. But we see Mark and Brett the first leave at 12:17 a.m. and they don't want to let their guards down at this late stage of the game. And we learn that they might want to start a family someday, and that Brett donated some of his male stuff. Okay, it's sperm. Okay, I'm just gonna say it's sperm to their best friends down the street, and those kids look adorable. Adorable. So I think Mark and Brett would make great parents. And we then see Alyssa and Josiah. They depart next at 2:03 a.m. and they are excited to have the express pass, even though there's blisters all over their feet. They show them off later, let me tell you. And with Jonathan and Anna, they leave 2 minutes later, and Carson and Jack, they leave at 3:30 a.m., which means it's now time for, of course, you've guessed it, Tome. This is the segment of the show where I talk a lot of gay things. And let me tell you, I have a lot, not just in this segment, I have reviews spread out throughout this recap, let me tell you. But first, I need to talk about fashion. Of course, I'll talk about the recap from last week. Jack was wearing this yellow shirt. It worked for him. It made him pop. I feel like yellow is his colour. I approve of this motion. Okay, yellow is for Jack. I do not approve, however, on Carson's hat. He wore it around in an episode, but it's given me Alaskan Cruise. And we all know how I feel about that Alaskan Cruise prize. I think we all remember that, so I was not living from the hat. We know he wasn't happy with that the hat was too small for his head. It just needs to go. So there's also this week been a few comparisons between Carson and Sean from Boy Meets World. And so I'd say there are similarities there. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I feel like Carson's hair is more slicked down, and that Sean's is like a bit more like up like a bouncy. But you know, Sean's hair is sort of so bad because it's not relatively restricted by some terrible bandanas. Oh, I know you. I'm not saying anything else about that. I'm just gonna leave that there. They also refer to their delusion from last week, but like delusion is a very gay way of life. Let's be real. And I know Carson was referring to, drag queens. And, drag queens are always delusional. We see that in Drag Race. They're delusional all the time, especially when it comes to maxi challenges. Especially those who try to count mini challenge wins as maxi wins. I'm not saying them, but you, Lucy LaDuca. Okay. So, delusion is all around in the gay world. But then, I think the main thing here is that they saw Melinda and Erica getting out of the taxi as they were leaving the sculpture garden, and then they led them astray. But I wanted to see that reaction shot from them when they found out that they took a taxi. But they then also told Han during the roadblock, and I wanted Han's reaction, that the realization of they don't know, and they might get a penalty for this, so we might be in the clear. And they still, neither team, told Melinda and Erica because they found out on the map. Just saying. Interesting. But they also reminded me that Alyssa and Josiah, they ran that entire leg last week. Now, I've done a lot of marathons in my time. I've run a few of them, and my legs are usually shattered for days. And like 2 weeks ago, when I was like doing touristy things around London, I walked about 13 miles that day, and it took me like 2 days to recover. So I don't know how they recovered. They're like super bionic. I don't know. But that's it for Tome phones this week. See, short and sweet. Let's see what shameless I come up with next week. But they're in the taxi, and Carson is like holding this red book. Is it a notebook? I wasn't 100% sure whether it was a notebook or the taxi driver's phone. I think it was a notebook. I don't think it's become the new Scott and taking meticulous notes. And apparently last time they were in Italy, they were in Rome, and they had the only major fight they've ever had. Like, I knew because they teased it in their recap last week, but they didn't want this to happen again. They don't want the Nonas peeking out the windows, don't want the Nonas coming out, even though the Nonas would be eavesdropping anyway, being very gossipy. That's what I think. We then see Han and Holden their last to leave at 3:48 a.m. and they aim to beat at least one team in this leg. Yeah, not quite going to happen there, but they've got that determination. And so we go straight to the airport here, and Mark and Brett, they join Cos and Jack, and listen to on the floor, and the guys, they want to know the gossip, and Mark's like, I need the gossip. And for me, that felt like home. It made me so happy. And if you're gay and you say you don't like gossip, come on now. Girl, we all love a good bit of gossip. So Mark asks Alyssa, like, what happened, with the express pass? And Josiah straight away explains, we had to work on hot coals. Yeah, we got the express pass. What's your opinions on this? Like, would you have openly said, oh, we got the express pass? Because now, like, the other teams might use that as an opportunity to, like, purposely, send them in the wrong direction to like, flush it out. Even though it was sort of open-eyed and pretty clear that they got the express pass, but Jack and Carson were giving shocked face after Alyssa showed her blisters. Carson last week, remember, he was saying, oh, he had a big gob. Remember in Tome last week? Now it makes sense. His gob is big. The proof is in the pudding. We see that, and then it just cuts to them in Naples. And a lot of people were disappointed by the lack of the airport scene, because I feel like we would tease like potential drama, and we had that press photo of the shock face, so we thought there was going to be a bit more happening in this airport scene. It was just too short. Okay, we needed more from this airport scene. The fans had a lot of mixed feelings about this episode, let me tell you. Then do I have to comment on the short intros anymore? I don't think I do. We then get them to Naples, and teams get into marked cars with drivers. So, Ubers. So, the fans were mad about the Ubers, and they want to know why they couldn't have self-driven. I want to know that information. Maybe one of the teams can give us further information about that. I know possibly there could have been like a parking issue or something, possibly in Naples. But for the rest of I will refer to them as the Ubers. They got drivers when they don't really shouldn't have needed drivers, but they must now make their way in their Ubers to Stazione di Montesanto and take the funicular to Castel Sant'Elmo to find the next clue. And Mark says that he's gagging with excitement, if that's even a thing. Yes, Mark, it's a thing. It's a very gay thing. And if I refer to the dictionary, it's under the category of sickening. For example, in the latest season of Drag Race Down Under, and in the second episode, the girl group episode, the category was sheer genius, and Lady Susan came down the runway in her holographic AI look that she got from AliExpress, and we were Well, I was gagging with excitement about that, and the judges as well. Let me tell you, that's what gagging for excitement is, and it's a very known thing, Mark. So I think you knew what that was anyway. You're part like sort of part of the Drag Race family, so you know what that's about. And so we see then they're all talking about how amazing the views are and the quaint little cobblestone streets. And I don't think this is a manufactured moment for Expedia. I think they genuinely meant it by how beautiful it was. The views actually were really good and they got some really good shots. Even I was impressed. Might have been the 4K quality, I don't know, but I thought it looked really good. And we get Josiah, he says he can't speak Italian, but can speak Spanish, so he'll say things in Spanish but with an Italian accent and hope it lands. And his taxi driver enjoyed that. I'm sort of quite similar where like I will if I don't speak the language, I will try to mimic the accent of that language to make people feel at ease. So that's sort of my attempt at that. We then get Carson and Jack. They want to put the fun in funicular. Get it? I know. And there's like this whole like thing about them having a whole mad dash to the funicular, but everyone gets on it. There was like it wasn't even close. So I felt that was like a whole thing for nothing. And then we get this like Italian like music when they got off the funicular. And it just made me laugh because it was like rushy as they were running around trying to find the clue. And it just made me laugh. We then got Helen Holden and Jonathan Anna. They break away from the pack to get the clue first, which tells them to go back down on the funicular and make their way on foot to the Puccinella statue and rub the nose with both hands to get the next game. And Helen Holden are in first place. A lot of fans were happy to see when it said they were in first place because there are a lot of Helen Holden stands, let me tell you. And Anna says to Jonathan, don't let the others see you with the clue. And then as the other teams run past them, Anna is holding the clue like it's clearly inside. So that's just basically that. But Han and Holden and Jonathan Anna, they're happy because they have a bit of a cushion, getting on the funicular early. That lead won't last long. Well, on the funicular, they get some directions on Google Maps. Google Maps will be a theme here for the episode. But what maps do they have if it's on iPhone? What is Maps called? Is it Apple Maps? Is it iMaps? I'm an Android person. I'm a very big Android person. So I have no clue. Josiah, he nearly gets run over by a moped. And like, how Italian is that moped? And I just really wanted him to shout at the driver going, hey now. And then the driver to say, hey now. And then everyone to go, this is what dreams are made of. Hey now, hey now. This is what dreams are made of. That's what I've asked for. Come on. If you know, come on. That was just going in my head like that. That should have happened at some point during this leg, and no one even. Maybe it's because it should have been in Rome, but still, doesn't matter. It was in Italy. Holden insists it's okay. Waves still have a lead, and then it cuts to Mark and Brett finding the statue, and they learn of this next detour, which is mandolin and mozzarella. In mandolin, teams have to assemble Neapolitan mandolin with one team member constructing the mandolin before the other team member must string the instrument to get the next clue. And in mozzarella, I have to say, you like that, the ciao bella. Teams had to braise 6 pieces of mozzarella into stretcher plats within 250 to 350 grams per plat before receiving the next clue. Jack and Carson listen to they get their clues, while the other two teams are running around lost and have completely lost their lead. But as Hun and Holden run past, there is this one lady, and I know she's been making the mean rounds right now, the memes, and she just looks confused and bewildered by what's going on. She's like, girl, why interrupt my day? But that's been making the rounds. We get to mozzarella, and we finally get the mozzarella madness, which was very hyped by Phil last week. It was all about the mozzarella madness, and we find out that Mark and Jack are both quarter Italian, and so they powered together to make a half. Come on now, Italian twin powers activate! And Jonathan, Anna, and Helen Holden, they finally get to the statue after lots of searching. And Jonathan and Anna choose mandolin, and they're the only ones to choose mandolin. And Jonathan is like a kid in a candy store at mandolin. He's so excited and giddy. Apparently, he played guitar in high school, Now, I tried that in high school very long. It lasted me about 2 weeks. I even bought a good electric guitar for it. I haven't touched it since. It is, I think it's still under my stairs in its case. I haven't touched it in how long was it? At least 15 years. Okay, so it's old. But I think it helped here that they were inside, a nice quiet environment, but with that nice, like, light strumming of the mandolin in the back, and they were able to think and relax more. So, and Jonathan, I felt Jonathan was more relaxed here. Han and Holden, they get to mozzarella, and they realize they don't have a lead anymore, and all the other teams have been there for a while. And in confessional, Holden is serving Grumpy Cat. He just looks miserable. We need to make him smile immediately. Okay. Holden's smile is so infectious. Now, Jack and Carson, they go for their first attempt at mozzarella, and none of them pass. All their plats are just too light and skinny, which, to be fair, they made what they knew. Okay. They're just skinny twinks. Okay. They made what they knew, and Mark and Brett, they get 4 on their first attempt. Good start. While back at Mandarin, Jonathan's happy that all the parts are laid out. Now, I love putting together like IKEA stuff, so I do love like assembling stuff as well. And Jonathan was having just a good old time getting all the pieces, putting them together. I think they had, I didn't know if they had like instructions within the glue. Like, I like the instruction manual to go through. I like going step by step for the instruction manual. It makes me feel satisfied. I just did that yesterday. I was putting together a circle and miter saw together and stands. So I had the instruction book out and I was living my best life. Yes, I know, medium manual labor with a saw. I know. I'll be working outside in my backyard right now. I'm fixing up my back fence and gate. So I'm working with a lot of tools. I know medium manual labor. I know. Who would have thought? Anyway, we get Han starting to feel a bit defeated here. Look at how well all the other teams are doing, making their twists. They're looking really good. But come on, Han, you get through this. Jack and Carson, they go for the second attempt and they just get 1 this time, which is an improvement. They got none last time. But this time, a lot of them, they made it too heavy because they were like, oh, it's too skinny. Let's double the consistency. But now they made it too heavy. And I'm going to take this moment to address that. Once again, the fans, as I mentioned earlier, they had a lot of things about this episode, and the fans were not happy. They were showing the judge checking every single twist, and that it took time out the episode. I think that, like, the speediness, they could have edited it a bit quicker. A lot of fans just wanted them to just skip the fails and only did the ones that were accepted. I get that. There was a lot else we could have shown in this episode. I get it. But Mark and Beth, they get the second attempt and they only get 1 more. They get 5 now in total. And I think that shocked them. I thought they felt they were expected to get all of them, but no. They've got 1 more to do. And as Jack and Carson, they prepare for their third attempt, we get a Jack tune called Bring On the Cheese. So, when is this TikTok music video for this song coming out? Where is it going to be streamed and when? It's obviously a #1 hit. You know, Trisha Paytas will be screaming to have a cameo role. Come on now. So Jack and Carson, they pass on their third attempt, and I think they're shocked that they passed Mark here. And they told to make their way on foot to the Monsanto Quarter to find their next clue. And Mark and Beth, they get their final choice sorted on the third attempt, and they get pass. And Ann and Jonathan, they get pass as well to get the next clue. And Alyssa and Josiah, they get them sort of all right on their first attempt. And so Han talks about the pressure here. She's feeling the pressure, especially about being the oldest daughter in a first-generation Asian immigrated household, and the hardship is sort of like making it better, making it right for them. Now, I can't speak in terms of that, as you know, I'm a British white male. I will say that I've seen sort of many stories about this struggle happening in just slightly different circumstances, but sort of within all the same context. So I do understand sort of how that comes about. We then see Anna and Jonathan. They get to the clue box first. We were surprised they got there first, but I think possibly that the detour location just happened to be closer to this route info. And it's an active route info task. And in its task, teams have to look above to one of the households who will drop down a bucket of a grocery list and some spending money, people, to purchase groceries and deliver them using the bucket and rate provided in exchange for their next clue. Now, I'm gonna reveal I wasn't really living for this task because they didn't have too much trouble like finding like the groceries, and there wasn't any changes in position during this task. So I was I wasn't for living, and I felt like it needs to be like if it was like older knowners as well, I would have lived for that. But okay. But as this happens, Holden, they get 4 on their first attempt, which I think lifts their spirits a little bit. And Jonathan and Anna, we see them buying their vegetables, and Anna gets a good assumption that sausage is next on the list because the grocery list, remember, is all in Italian, so some of teens struggle with the Italian. That's but the main struggle, especially when it comes to the breaded portion. Hunt and Holden, they pass on their second attempt, and Jack and Carson, they're lost, which is the first time the stag. They find a map which is half covered in graffiti, which I remember seeing in the promo, but I didn't think it was on this stag. But they have no idea where they actually are. So they don't even know how to get anyone on the map because they don't even know where they are in the first place. But don't worry, they come back for a commotion and that all gets sorted. On Jonathan, they're finding the sausage as Jonathan guides Jack and Carson to the clue box. Now, side note, those sausages, they look quite fit. Anyways, Mark and Brett, they just want to eat and have an espresso. You know, an espresso macchiato. But they don't have the time and money. Well, Mark will have soon to have a little bit, let me tell you. Alicia and Josiah, they arrive at the clear box as Jonathan and Anna, they get their deliveries back, and Mark and Brett, they're coming in hot as well behind them, and the teams have to find another Mark Tuber with a driver and make their way to L'Istante de Ettore to find the next game. Now, Anna takes the time to go ask for directions, like, oh, do you have Google Maps? We need directions on the Google Maps. I found funny is that they're baking on the Google Maps. Mark and Brett, they ask the greengrocers they passed for the task for directions, and it helps because they get their Mark Tuber first, while Jonathan and Anna, they didn't find their Uber, and they're excited that they're in first. Oh, how wrong they are. We then see Han and Holden, they finally get to the grocery task, as there is now an Uber race to the restaurant between Carson and Jack and Jonathan and Anna. Carson and Jack, they pass Jonathan and Anna is bewildered how it's possible that they could have caught up to them. By the way, this just sort of reminds me, like, in Dubai with Nick and Mike. Remember when Nick and Mike were on the race? I missed them. It made me remind me of them. And they obviously, they're talking about Han and Holden. Jonathan and Anna think that Han and Holden are ahead and that they passed them, not knowing how far behind they got on mozzarella. Because remember, the last time they saw Han and Holden was when they were finding the statue. Now, they thought at that time they had a lead. It wasn't until Han and Holden got to mozzarella they realised they didn't have a lead. But because Han and Jonathan went alone to Mandolin and then got ahead and got first at the grocery clue box, that made them think then that they were ahead. So I like how that all that put together because Carson and Jack, they know the truth here. I think at this point we're going to take a commercial break. Ooh, and when we return, we're going to talk over pizza nightmares right after this. Hey fellow race fans, I know you are the same as me and love talking about Amazing Race, and if you want to get something off your chest or want to ask any Amazing Race question, no matter what it is, you can send me it in the comments or send me an email at checkinchatpodcast@gmail.com and I might answer it in a future podcast. We don't get talking about Han and Holden. We go back here, and they're getting frustrated that they can't figure out what some of the items are on the shopping list. Like Holden wants them, like trying to get the gringos to show them on their phone, but they're reluctant to get on the phones. They don't want to give it the phones. So it's a whole thing. But they quickly leave the greengrocers and find a way. They sort it out. We then get Mark and Brett and Jack and Carson, and they have this cutesy little base for the clue box at the same time. And the roadblock is who's feeling saucy. And the team member must make a margarita pizza from scratch before receiving the next clue. And Alyssa, Brett, Carson, Han, Anna do this roadblock. Now, for reference, because I know you were all dying to know what my favourite pizza was, I love me a margarita pizza with a cheese stuffed crust. Ooh, girl, that fills me up. I do not care for the pepperoni on the pizza. No, ma'am. I do not care for pineapple on the pizza. No, ma'am. That can go away from me. You can expect if you see pineapple on pizza, I will throw it in the bin immediately. So don't even think about it. Okay? Case in point. So Carson, he is hesitant to take this roadblock because if Jack takes it, Jack would reach his 6 roadblock limit. And Carson, we know that he's not a great cook. We've heard him say it before, but he proclaims to be one of the worst cooks in America. Then he should apply for next season of that. I think it's still airing. Is it on Fox? I don't know. I think it's still airing. I think it's still being recommissioned. But Anna is very excited to make pizza in Naples. Though as she's doing this, I think they were shaded here because she was telling it to one camera, but then in the shot of her doing it, they use a different camera, a bit shady. But we learned that when Anna was 16, her first job was at Domino's Pizza. Now, this is not five-holing, but she did a lot of pizza, so I think, has got this in the bag. The non-Roblox boys, they're living their best lives here because they find out they get to eat unlimited free pizza. It's the most excited I think I've ever seen any of them this entire race. That demonstration pizza, it needs to be used in some way. They were living their best lives. Some of them struggle putting the pizza on the paddle, but Anna knows the trick, putting on the flour. And then we go to Hun and Holden. They finish the grocery task. They get back in the Mark Uber, but we know that they're still a bit behind. Anna gets it on her first try, and everyone is shooketh. They cannot believe it, and then she says, "Oh, working at Domino's, worked at Charm," and so "Oh, okay, that makes sense." And teens must now take their pizza with them on foot to Phil at Castel Nuovo to check in at the pit stop. Now, the pizza box should have been the clue itself. They didn't need the extra clue envelope. It should have had the picture of the castle on it with the name and then say pit stop. But they used to do that a few times. That was fun. They used to do that. They should be that would have been more interesting. This sort of rule out the potential of them thinking it's a non-elimination But Carson gets a fail here. He needs more oil and cheese. And come on, you can never have too much cheese on a pizza. Okay? And Brett gets a pass, and I love how Mark, he was in a mid conversation, and it was oh, who cares what I was gonna say? I'm out of here. Which I just found so hilarious. Then Carson, the struggle bus is here because Carson has trouble putting it on the paddle, and Alyssa is trying to get her pizza out the oven, and she puts her hands in the oven. Girl, really? And the judge then just gives her a fail and does a start over, and the judge starts to get a bit grumpy, but not like Grumpy Cat like earlier with Holden. Not like that, but in a more serious grumpy kind of way. It's how can you not bake pizza? And Carson tries to put his in the oven, and it just falls apart, so he gets another fail. Alyssa knows that Han and Holden, they're still quite behind, so is sure they won't use the Express Pass today, unless something miraculous happens with Han and Holden. But Jonathan and Anna, they check into the pit stop first and win a trip to Mexico. Okay. I feel come on. As Expedia, it's too big travel, a trip to Mexico, especially since the prizes is supposed to get better as the race goes on. A trip to Mexico, come on, you can get this, you can win this on live with Kelly and Mark. I miss when Regis was on. I know he's dearly departed, may he rest in peace. But I loved it when Regis was on. Remember? I don't know if they still do. I haven't caught live in a while. But did they still do like the daily games? You know, when they spin the wheel and they ask, the question. Did they still do that? Because like this feels like a trip you could win on live. But anyway, welcome back. We see them checking second, and Carson gets another foul because his pizza's just too small. It was a child pizza. I think the judge is getting a bit too pedantic. I think he was getting a bit snappy and getting a bit too pedantic here. But Alyssa gets a pass and Carson then gets another fail because his pizza was a square. I thought it was more oval, but a square, I wouldn't go that far. I also like how we get another casting promo here when casting, I know for a fact that casting is officially closed. Like the casting director said, casting's closed. So I don't know why that was there. But we come back and Carson, he gets the episode quote, the pizza de resistance, which go on a good quote. I hate the episode titles or quotes. I like the season 1 quotes, that season 1 titles. I hate this episode quotes. I just hate them. Like, no. I like that Carson finally got one in. And Jack, he's out, outside. He's having a good old time, just eating away at Carson's failed pizzas. And I want to mention that again, the fans had a right old time in this episode, and they think that this roadblock was too easy. I disagree. That comes from me, where I only cook when there's instructions. I need instructions to follow. Like if the box does not have instructions telling me exactly what temperature to cook for how long, and step by step instructions on how to make it, I'm not cooking it. Holden, they finally arrive the roadblock and their fight returns in them. But just as they come, Carson gets a pass. And the judge says, it was the best crust of the day. I thought it looked a bit burnt, but okay. They get going, and Alyssa and Josiah their chicken third. And Phil and Josiah, they have a little pun off. And I didn't see that one coming. Did you? Josiah definitely didn't, but Phil definitely won that one. And Han gets a pass, and on their way, while Jack and Carson, they get a bit lost. They finally get to the mat, Carson and Jack, and Carson drops his clue on the mat, like it just falls out of the clue envelope as Phil's talking to them, and they check in fourth, and on the way out, they do like a Velcro dance, dancing Tumbalasha dance on the way out, and then we see Han and Holden, they check in last, but Phil tells them it's a non-elimination leg, and they make Phil dance to them to the band on the mat. But there's no mention of any penalty, of any speed bump. And I know fans have been saying that they're over the speed bump and they want they wouldn't mind marked for elimination being back. So we might find out about next week. And I'll talk about that in a moment because it's now time for I'll Do It My Way, where I'll talk about the decisions I would make on this leg. First of all, being the detour, and the detour being mozzarella and mandolin. Now, I'm thinking I might have gone for mozzarella here. Reason being, with mandolin, you don't know how much of the mandolin at that point you would have needed to assemble unless you went there and looked and then swapped. So, from that standpoint, I could try to make a decision there. I would have gone for mozzarella. Also, mozzarella involves cheese. I love cheese. Pretty much it. And sort of the fact that it sounded like a bit more easier to complete than the mandolin. But of course, send it away, and that's just the decisions you have to make. We then get the next decision, which was the roadblock, and I would have my partner do the roadblock, as I mentioned earlier. Not the best at cooking. I'm not the best at kitchen. I haven't made anything tits up in the kitchen. Don't get me wrong, but I just with my controlling stuff, I just need instructions. I just need that flow. I need to know exactly what I'm doing. If something's in the oven, if I have a cake in the oven, I'm watching it rise. I'm not leaving it beside. I'm not giving it the slightest chance of getting burnt. No, ma'am. But those are my choices I would have made this week. And so it's weird because we're near the end of the episode of this week's podcast, and because there's no rooting for you this week, so it feels very strange. But next week, we're in France. Ugh, I know. France again. Let me tell you, we'll see that again next season. But we're in a different city. We're in Strasbourg, and there's a double battle. You may call it head-to-head, but it's a double battle, and there's no way you're making me change it. Which is possibly a double battle robot combo, which is potentially interesting. We see them potentially doing a geography task. There's a detour involving possibly makers of an oil and washing clothes. Will Alyssa and Josiah use their express pass? Last time they could use it. Who will go home? Very interesting as we head into next week is the penultimate episode, and then a 2-night finale event. That's going to be a long weekend for me. I need to figure out where I'm going to podcast sweat, but also a bit of things in terms of franchises. Canada's happening right now. I'm not going to do a boiler room for it this week because we don't sort of have all the teams for it. We have some of the teams, we call them like in leg 3, and we get like more location stuff. We're getting like bits and pieces, but we're sort of still not enough to get a whole rounded picture. But we are getting bits and pieces over there. And Finland has just started filming. I know everyone was excited from the last season of Finland that took place. So they just started, and it was interesting because we saw the image of the starting line. But there's no production wise. They like to make them fake start a few times for like shots and different angles, and they make them restart a lot, at least 4 times, which is funny to say. But that is it for this week's edition of the podcast. If you have any feedback for me, leave it in the comment section on the YouTube video and give me a like and subscribe. That would be very much appreciated. If you are listening on audio podcast, give me a 5-star review and send me an email at checkandchatpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you all next week. Night night.